to a PBA coffee break. Today we have with us Thomas Clarke, Vice President Exploration at Hawkmoon Resources. Welcome, Tom. Pleasure to have you back with us.
Yeah, hi, good to see you again.
What we really wanted to do today was get to know you a little bit better. So would you be able to touch on your background?
Sure, I grew up on a farm and I eventually went to university in Lethbridge. Did a first kind of degree, didn't get much, except I got to meet Jane Goodall. I brought her to the first speech, so I volunteered for her. Did an internship overseas, and then I realized I had to update my educational qualifications. So I went to South Africa as an international student, did an honors, Bachelor of Science honors, and then a master's by thesis in geology. And from that point on, I started working there. And it was an interesting experience. I thought it was a much broader experience that way. It was obviously a lot of challenges, but a lot of rewards being an international student.
Wow, that's phenomenal. So you started off your career as a, I guess, geologist in Africa.
That's correct. My master's thesis was a bit of an eccentric one, but it was in the world's largest platinum belt, the Bushveld complex. So I ended up working in all three limbs of the Bushveld. My first real job was core logging geologist. It was insane. It was like we were 24,000 meters behind the bit.
Wow.
So it was a lot of work, a lot of learning. So after South Africa, I spent a period of time on mostly international contracts. The first one would be Russia, Northwest Russia on a platinum palladium deal. Some time in Madagascar, Guyana, as well as Peru with a private Canadian company. And came back to Canada in 2000. I started working in Canada mostly 2008, 2009. So I did some series of local contracts before I joined Bonterra Resources in 2010 as a director. That was my first kind of entrance into the business side of mineral exploration. It was a very steep learning curve, but it was an interesting experience because we were able to raise money. We had a really good project. It's since been renamed to the Gladiator. And that's just about 200 kilometers east of Wilson. Well, maybe not quite that far, in Quebec, in La Belle-sur-Quévillon. So that's kind of where I had the opportunity to understand the business in Quebec. I realized quite quickly there's a lot of support for the business there. There's a lot of positive attitude towards mineral exploration and mining. So I kind of focused on Quebec for some time. And then the mining business, exploration business became really bad. Yeah, and I moved back to Alberta from BC and started working. I worked in the oil industry mostly solidly until Hawkmoon.
So how did you come to work with the Hawkmoon team?
Oh, Brandon and I met with a mutual broker friend at the Cactus Club. I remember that. It was early 2019, like February or something like that. And Brandon brought up the fact that he'd like to start his own junior, which I thought was quite interesting because at the time I had been working in the sector for a number of years now. So I thought that was kind of a good idea. And then because I missed it, it's a fun way to make money, and you get to kind of find new cool things and meet different people. So one thing led to another, and he formed the company in, I think it was April of 2019. And so I agreed to join the board in May, shortly after. And some of my friends bought in right away. We didn't even have a bank account. So I had to have all these agreements. They bought in my personal company, so it was transferred to Hawkmoon. So it was a fun experience, and it's kind of just kept snowballing. It's been a great experience so far.
So you've had, quite a varied career, worked all around the world. What would you say your most significant discovery has been?
I'd say there's been two. The first one was I was working with the Bema Gold Group. It was a sub company, a consolidated Puma, I think it was. They had a project, the Schwarvey palladium deposit, or project, it wasn't really a deposit. It was just southeast of the city of Murmansk in Russia in the Kola Peninsula. There's a lot of drilling, there's a lot of good results, and they had rigs going. And so I was just brought in because I knew a little bit about platinum and palladium from South Africa. And with a Russian colleague, Oleg Kazanov, we've each kind of discovered it differently. Like I looked at it, I saw a grain size change, and I saw, well, there's a difference here. And then he saw a different texture difference, and sure enough, we started to be able to predict where the palladium would be, and it just kept growing. But yeah, I have a resource estimate, and I was all in Russian, and so my services weren't really needed for a while, so I kind of moved on. But the more recent discovery, it was partially us as a group at Bonterra, as well as the previous guys at Abatex Resources, was the Gladiator deposit. It was called Eastern Extension by us at the time. So we got the project in summer, fall of 2010, and we did an initial channel sampling. That's when you get a saw and you cut across an outcrop. You want to verify these old numbers, and there's a lot of good holes, but a lot of dead holes. There's holes drilled in every direction. So we're trying to make sense of the data set, and we were quickly able to replicate those numbers. It was really fun. We went from like 10 to 70 cents or something in late 2010.
Wow.
And so we just kept drilling. We drilled about 13,000 meters and added it to the 8,000 historical. And we came with the first pass resource estimate. Since they've grown it a lot larger since then. So that was a really cool discovery, to turn an old data set into something modern and that's going to be grown. And we discovered a new zone. We call it Rivage, which is shoreline, I believe, in Francais, the Rivage zone.
Yes.
I'm not sure what it's named now. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and we grew that, and then the market conditions became poor for the business, and I ended up leaving the board, I don't know, within months after that, and then got busy into the oil sector for a time.
Excellent. So you mentioned that this discovery that you had made isn't far from the Wilson. Can you explain a little bit what kind of deposit the Wilson is?
Yeah, it's funny about the Wilson. The Wilson, the Osisko Mining's Windfall, which is just north of Bonterra's Gladiator, they're all the same deposit type. They're atypical gold deposits. Where normally in lode gold, which is basically gold in a vein system, it's just the gold's in the vein, and you don't need any external sources. But the atypical has a heat source, a latter stage intrusive event. At Wilson, it's a gabbro sill, where the gabbro, this hot rock, contacts a volcanic rock, and at the margin is where you get your Toussaint zone, your mid-rim zones, your mineralization occurs there. Bonterra was a syenite, and that was the best grades are always right next to the syenite. So in one way, it's a typical. It's a gold in a vein or mineralized structure, but it is atypical due to the heat source. So it's interesting that's kind of got my attention a little with Wilson, because it seems to be in that area, the atypical deposit type offers the most potential. Time will tell, but we've got a lot of work to do, but it looks positive so far.
So with the recent results that you announced on January 25th of this year, do you think that you have a new deposit on your hands with the Wilson?
Well, for sure, it's one hole. It's for sure an extension, because what's interesting to me is in the mid-rim as well as the Toussaint showings on the Wilson property, both of them, it's roughly the same orientation, east-west or northeast, southwest. So extensions are generally along that east or west directions, but it's a new parallel zone to this 50 meters to the south. So the goal is, can we grow this in parallel with the zones, previously known zones that we started to grow this year? And we're in the middle of planning the drill permit application right now. So we've got a lot of holes in that area. We first want to do some surface work. We're also applying for a permit for that, to see if we can find this thing on surface. So can we extend it a little easier that way? But for sure, it's an extension of the mid-rim deposit, absolutely. Or mid-rim's not a deposit, it's a showing. So now the test is, can we keep making these zones bigger? Can we make them deeper and find new zones? So that's kind of where we're at now, and when we're preparing for our summer program. And
so you mentioned that you applied for some of the permits for the summer program. Can you just go in a little bit more detail on what you plan or what you're planning this summer?
Yeah, we're currently applying. We're looking around 23 holes for 5,000 meters. We're looking to do a balance at the Toussaint, the mid-rim, as well as a little bit of the areas in the middle. But that said, we're going to add a bunch of possible other holes to the application. because we want to be able to follow up if we find some successes elsewhere with our surface work. We want to maybe drill some of those targets. The surface work is going to be a series of small, you get an excavator and you go, clear a few trees off, you scratch the moss and the dirt, so you can expose the bedrock. There are a series of geophysical anomalies we'd like to see if there's anything interesting there. Some drill holes in areas difficult to understand, see if we can find the superficial showing of the mineralized zone on the surface to better understand them. Things like that. It's kind of a mixture of earlier stage work and advanced stage work, kind of going hand in hand.
Well, that's phenomenal. So then we're going to be looking forward to quite a bit of news in, I guess, the coming months once you start the drill program and then the assays and so forth.
Yeah, like in the short term, we're still waiting on lava results, and so that should give us some news for a while. And then I anticipate starting. We're basically booking the driller for the middle of June, so I'm anticipating probably news about starting the field program early June, very late May, and results in over that period of time could take us as long as November. So we anticipate a lot of news flow for investors, and so that hopefully there'll be a lot of attention on the company as we put out this news, and hopefully a lot of it's good.
Excellent. Well, Tom, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me so we could get to know you a little bit better. And we'll definitely be following Hawkmoon and sharing that with all of our networks. So thanks so much.
Thanks. Have a great day.